Yitzi, Parshat Truma, we begin the Parshas that discuss the Mishkan. So many details. Seems very, very boring. However, this week we dove into the idea behind the Yeri'ot, behind the coverings of the Mishkan.
And we saw there are so many coverings. Some of them you don't really see so much on the outside. And we tried to dive into why are they there? What are they teaching us? What is the deeper meaning of each one of these layers?
Exactly. And there are so many deep meanings to every single detail in the Mishkan, but even more so to the Yeri'ot that we discussed. Important meaning even for us today in these weeks here in Eretz Israel, like we try to do in our videos. We see an incredible, important message the Torah has for us in our times. Hope you enjoy it. Take a look. New week, new Parsha, Parshat Truma, Chodesh Adar, we began yesterday, and in Parshat Truma, we begin the set of Parshas that discuss the building of the Mishkan with a ton of details that kind of seem a little bit boring. However, there are so many deep ideas, secrets hidden within these psukim, within these Parshiot. And this year, what I want to talk about is the Yeri'ot of the Mishkan, the covering of the Mishkan. That's probably the best translation for Yeri'ot, the coverings that went on top of the Mishkan. Now, if I tell you, Yitzi, build a tent, you would say, okay, I need this frame to be the wall, something to hold up, and then a roof on top, because that's what a tent is about, obviously. However, you would put one roof. That's what you would do. You put one cover on top of your tent. But in the Mishkan, we find not one cover, not two covers, not even three, according to one opinion. We find 4 different covers on the Mishkan itself. Not only do we find 4 different covers, we even find that some of the coverings, according to some opinions, you weren't even able to see at all. Not from the inside and not from the outside, because they were covered from both sides. Obviously, the ones in the inside, you weren't able to see on the outside, and the ones on the outside, you weren't able to see on the inside. But the bottom line is that there's so many coverings here, and you really have to ask why. Why are there so many coverings to the Mishkan? What is the story of the Yeri'ot about? What is the thought behind all these coverings of the Mishkan?
You know, that's actually very interesting. When we think of the Mishkan, we think of all the description of the walls here and there, but all that's covered, right? From the outside, you don't see any of that. All you see is a covering. And even that beautiful covering that you can see on the inside is covered with this big black covering made from dark goat leather. And on top of that, you put another layer, which is more beautiful, layer, 2 layers. But think about it, we don't even see the Mishkan. It's like the Mishkan is hidden. And it's interesting because the language sometimes used for the Mishkan is ohel, is a tent, is oil moed. It's covered up. It's not the walls, which are walls. They don't seem like an ohel, like a tent. It's this covering. That's what you see on the outside. And I think that one of the ways to truly understand the details in the Mishkan is to look at what it represents. And Chazal on the pasuk that says at the beginning of our Parsha, Vasuli mikdash v'shachanti betocham, point out that it says they'll make a mikdash for me and I will rest. It should have said, and I will rest within it, but it doesn't say that. It says I will rest within them. So in a certain sense, and many of the Mefarshim go down this track, there's a certain comparison between the Shechina, godliness that is resting within the Mishkan, and godliness that is resting within man, within us. So there's this parallel between the Mishkan and us. There's something in the Mishkan that's supposed to represent us, supposed to represent how godliness can rest within us. And I think if we look at it like that, we can see something fascinating here. On the inside, we have all the beauty. And that's clear also in us, in our neshama, deep down inside, without all the mess on the outside. There's a beautiful, shining neshama inside. And that's where godliness rests, within the Mishkan, within the Kodesh Kodashim, with the menorah and the light of the menorah. And there we have a beautiful covering. But that's not what we see on the outside. What we see is not so beautiful sometimes on the outside. On the outside, we sometimes see darkness, we see lies, we see things, we see a low world with many, many lackings. We don't always see that light that's hidden inside. And we see many times in the Midrashim, this concept of the Malachim, arguing with man, where should godliness be? In the skies or down in the slumps in this world? Where do we want that? And here in our Parsha, we see again in Chazal, this concept of this battle between the Malachim. What are you doing? Shining your light, revealing godliness there? And God says, yes, I have my chiba, ani mechavev et hatachtonim. I have this love for the lower worlds, and I will reveal myself within the Yeri'ot izim. It points out especially not to the other covering. This covering, this strange covering in the middle, that's what it points to. This dark covering that covers it all up. That's where I want to reveal myself, in that low covering. So this is what the Mishkan is. This is what the Mishkan is meant to be. It's meant to be godliness revealed in that dark covering. Godliness revealed with us, godliness revealed within the lower world. And this is our mission in the world, is to light that light within the darkness. But based on that, we should have ended there with that dark covering on the top. But it's not that. We have this extra covering. Yeah, according to some, it shows more, it shows less, this in-between covering. No matter what it peaks out, it sometimes seems to be that you can't fully cover it. It's always gonna peek out somewhere, this darkness. But what is this nice covering on the top? So is it nice or is it not? Is it beautiful or is it not? And I think this is another teaching. One of the ways to elevate this world is not to just say everything on the outside is all ugly, is all disgusting, this world is disgusting, but it's okay. Deep down inside, there is some good. Nobody's gonna see that good if you treat everything, if you treat this world in a negative way. And what the Torah is teaching us here, yes, this world has this dark covering, but you need to cover that covering with something that hints what's actually inside. If you now look at every person and don't see that external side, you see a beauty on the outside because it's hinting to a deeper beauty on the inside, then you'll treat man, you'll treat the world differently because you'll understand that potential that's hidden within it. Dafka within this world, that's where godliness needs to be revealed. That's where God wants to reveal himself. So by covering that extra covering on the outside, yeah, maybe it doesn't cover up all the darknesses. We can't seem to avoid the darknesses and the challenges and the low parts of this world, but covering it up with something, seeing the world in a good light, in a positive light, seeing that on the outside is based, it hints to something that's going on there in the inside. Don't just see this cover and ignore it. See what's behind it. And in Kabbalistic writings, we have the concept of levush, which is a covering. And what's interesting about a covering is on the one hand, it hides you from seeing what's inside. But on the other hand, when someone puts on clothes, you don't say that you don't see them. When do you not see them? If they're behind a wall, because the wall doesn't show their form. You don't see their shape. You don't see them through that wall. It's blocking. When we look at the Mishkan, when we look at these Yeri'ot Izim, they are covering the Mishkan, but they have the shape of the Mishkan. They're revealing the shape that's inside. It's covered. If you look carefully, there's something hidden in there. It's calling you, come inside and reveal and learn and see the beauty that's hidden inside. I think that's exactly the balance we have here. The beauty, godliness is revealed purely inside. And that is covered by nature of this world. That's how it is. That's how it should be. But we need to see that shape. We need to see that form. We need to see the potential, and we represent us seeing that by beautifying it again on the outside to hint to what's really hidden there inside.
Beautiful, beautiful, literally beautiful. The Mishkan was beautiful, but also what you're saying, because really this idea of the Mishkan, of the Yeri'ot of the Mishkan, of the covering of the Mishkan, like you were saying, where there is godliness inside and there's a beauty inside that we have to discover, we have to take out from there, even though it's covered with this roughness, with this izim in Hebrew, that's from the word az. It's a rough type of material. It's not something you would want to wear on yourself. It's not something you would take pride in, but we have to find through that roughness, we have to find the godliness, the holiness, the beauty, and take it out. However, like you also were saying, sometimes in order to find it, we first ourselves have to treat it through beauty. We have to cover it up with another cover of beauty. Mitoch shelo lishma ba lishma, as we say, sometimes we have to push ourselves to do things even though we can't feel them, even though we don't understand how, even though we don't see a way to do it, we still do it. We still act that way. In order to get to the real point, we start with a place which isn't really fully real, which isn't really fully lishma, isn't really for its true purpose to begin with. That's one way to get to that holiness, to get to that godliness, to get to that beauty. But I think maybe there's another message here in the Yeri'ot of the Mishkan and the coverings of the Mishkan, because we find the same concept in other places around the Mishkan, starting with the Aron HaBrit, starting with the Aron where the Luchot were, with Aron HaKodesh, where we first find a golden box inside, then we put that golden box into a wooden box, then that wooden box we put again into a golden box. And the same question could be asked over there. Why are the boxes? Why not enough just one box? So you want to make it stronger, so make two boxes of wood and gold or whatever. Why have the sandwich of the boxes? Why have it that way? But maybe there's another point which is being said throughout the Mishkan, and this concept of bringing godliness into this world, of Dira B'Tachtonim, as we say, of Asuli Migdash, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanting a place in this world. Like you said from the Midrash, the Melachim are shocked. What do you mean have a place in this world? And maybe this is what it's about. In this world, everything is mixed together. As we say in Hebrew, balagan, everything is an irbuv. Everything is intertwined together, so much intertwined that this bottom cover, the bottom Yeri'ah, is shesh moshzar. The Torah tells us it was shesh moshzar. Moshzar, probably the best way to translate is to weave, is to put together threads in order to make one string. And then you take those those 6 different materials and create from them one string. But then once you weave it together and then you sew it together, you create this beautiful cloth, this beautiful cover that creates this beautiful image of a lion or an eagle, and the different opinions of what image was there. But the bottom cover had this beautiful image that was created out of the shzira, out of the threading together, out of connecting all these different elements together. So on the one hand, it's a mix-up. However, it's a mix-up, but then you make an order out of the different opinions. Also, mushzar in Hebrew, shazar, the shoresh, shin zayin resh, also means a foreigner. Shezar, that is a foreigner. You take what you are and what you don't know and something that's foreign to you, but you weave them together, you connect them together. That's what creates the beauty in the end of the day. The beauty is created not through a monotonic voice. If you want to create beautiful music, if you want to create a beautiful image, a beautiful picture, you need many different colors, you need many different notes, you need many different instruments. That's how you make something beautiful. But in order to make it beautiful, you can't leave it in a big mix-up. You can't just throw colors onto a canvas. Some artists do, but in order to make a real beautiful painting, you need to have order in it. You need a conductor to tell the instruments what to play, when to play, how to play. That's what creates the beauty. So you take all these different colors, these different notes, these different opinions, and you weave them together in a shesh mozar, in a shzira. Even the ones that are foreigners to you, you weave them together to make that beautiful image. That's the bottom cover. And through that, once you understand that, then you can see through the darkness, through the roughness, and find the holiness, find the godliness in the world. And then you can help it shine out of the Mishkan onto the world. Maybe that's a different point that's being made over here in the Mishkan, in the covers, in the Aron HaBrit, in the different boxes that Aron HaBrit was made out of. This is maybe what the Mishkan is all about. It's there to represent the godliness in the world, the Kvod Hashem, the honor that we give Hashem in this world for all of Am Yisrael. And as we know, as we've said so many times, Am Yisrael, thank God, it contains a lot of different opinions, a lot of different ideas, a lot of different thoughts, a lot of different colors. And throughout history, what made us so unique is the ability to weave these opinions together, to make this shish mozar, to make this beautiful cover on the bottom, to make this beautiful image that is Am Yisrael. This is what we are about. This is what our nation is about. But unfortunately, as we see today, many times in this world, it's covered with darkness, covered with roughness, covered with extreme thoughts and opinions that are being shouted out just in order to make some noise and just in order to get attention. But it's our job to look through that noise, to look through that darkness, to look through that roughness and see the beauty in the different opinions, and through that create this beautiful cover that holds up the Mishkan in order to bring a Kadosh Baruch Hu into it, to bring Aron HaBrit into it with the Torah, and through that reveal Kvod Hashem in this world.
Beautiful, beautiful. And you really see how this isn't a coincidence. The more beautiful things, the more true things are always the ones that are hidden, that are covered, that are revealed in intimacy. The Mishkan, the Ohel Moed, the tent where we meet, as we discussed in the past, the word Moed, that's where we meet. The meeting is private, it's intimate. You want to reveal light, it comes covered, right? If I'm passing on a treasure from one to the other, if it's something that's not worth anything, I'll just toss it from one person to the other. It's completely revealed. Something that has meaning is always concealed in an external cover. And maybe this also fits to Chodesh Adar, because we say, Mishenichnas Adar marbim b'simcha. This is the month of Simcha. And it's interesting because Adar is all the way at the end of the year. If Pesach represents the beginning of the light, the spring, the shining of the light, the shining of Am Yisrael, this is like as far as you can be from there. It's the end of the year. It's the 12th month. Maybe that's what Haman saw, right? He was happy. This is, there's nothing happens here. This is as far away from Geula as can be. As we know, it's also the closest point to Geula as can be. We're just before Pesach, as Rashi says, and he speaks of the miracles of both Purim and Pesach. So there's this flip side to that. But in a certain sense, it's not a coincidence that this special light, this special simcha of Adar is revealed on the last month, because that's the point. Because it's in the darkness, because that's what it's about. It's not about revealing light in light. You don't see the light in light. That's shining the light with the malachim. That's nice. It's about revealing the light in the Yeri'ot. It's about revealing the light in the darkness at the end. Yes, even in that darkest month, even in the darkest time, even when Am Yisrael was in Galus, galus in Persia and, hanging out with all the goyim. Even in that covering, there's a light that's shining deep inside. And that's what Purim is putting the focus on. Purim is us covering that third cover, that beautiful cover on the outside, saying, don't ignore this last month. Don't think that everything's bad in the world, everything you see. No, cover it up so you remember that deep down inside, there is the greatest light. The greatest light is going to be revealed, concealed in that darkness. That's what Chodesh Adar about, and that's, I think, what the Yeri'ot Mishkan are teaching us.
Exactly. The Yeri'ot Mishkan have so much to them. We just discussed a tiny bit of this concept of the Yeri'ot, of making order in this big mix-up, of finding the light through the darkness, through the roughness of this world. But there's so much more to them. We didn't even discuss the whole concept of a tachash, of what this top cover was about. What was it made out of? Apparently a mythical creature, maybe even a unicorn, according to some. There's so much more to talk about the Mishkan, about every single kli, about every single detail about the Mishkan, about the Mikdash. But we're out of time, so we'll end here. We'll just remind the viewers what we discussed the past couple of years. Last year, we discussed this whole idea of Vaikhu li Tuma, bring for me a donation, which is a very interesting thing to say, because if it's a donation, it has to be something that people are willingly, from their own will, bringing it up, right? However, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is commanding it. So how can HaKadosh Baruch Hu command to bring a donation? How exactly does that work? And the idea that we discussed is one of the most important basic ideas in our faith of what does it mean to be someone who worships Hashem? What does it mean to be an Eved Hashem? To fulfill the mitzvahs, is it a commandment or is it something we want? Is it a will that we have inside us? We'll link that video at the end of this one. 2 years ago, we discussed the idea behind the shulchan, behind the table that was in Mishkan. Why do we even need a table in the Mishkan? We understand the mizbech, we understand an altar to sacrifice things on, but what is the purpose of the shulchan? And we saw how the shulchan represents the wealth of the world. Sometimes it's hard for us to link the idea of richness, of money in this world to holiness. However, it was right there in the Mishkan, right next to Mizbech HaZahav and the Menorah. We'll link that video too. And of course, if you enjoy this video, feel free to share it around, comment below on YouTube. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing and help us grow the channel. And Shkoyach Yitzi.
Shkoyach, Chodesh Tov, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, and Emetz Hashem. We'll talk again next week. Shabbat.